it down, 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 down. So gather the faithful, tell everyone to stand and shout loud, shout loud, shout loud. Let's bring it down. Let's bring it way down. Let's bring it down. Let's bring it down, down. Let's bring it down. Let's bring it way down. Let's bring it down. Let's bring it down, 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 down.
Let me tell you, it's in the air. Joy is in the air. Love is in the air. Can you feel it? What it feel like? Freedom. What it feel like? Don't sleep on it, brother. You might get left, sister. Can you feel it? What it feel like? Freedom. What it feel like? Justice. No need to be counted, cause I am down. Down, down, down. Down, down, down. Down for the end of racism, for the end of bigotry, cause I am down. For the end of misogyny, that's right. For all the isms out there, just down, down, down. Let's bring it down. Rise up, people. No more foolishness, and let's bring it way down.
Riding the river of change into the cries of contrition. This is the way that we bring it down, 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 down. Down, down, down. We are the children of Eden, dancing and celebrating freedom. We are the ones that must bring it down, 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 down. Down, down, down. So gather the faithful, tell everyone to stand and shout loud, shout loud, shout loud. Let's bring it down. Let's bring it down. Let's bring it down. Let's bring it down, down. Let's bring it down. Let's bring it way down. Let's bring it down. We've got to bring it down, down. Stand up and shout, stand up and shout. Rise
Accountability
together.
starts now. The Eric Dawson Radio Show.
Yeah. Rise up, stand up, shouting loud.
If you are not prepared to come to that table and to represent that voice, don't come. Because we don't need any more brown faces that don't want to be a brown voice. We don't need black faces that don't want to be a black voice. We don't need Muslims that don't want to be a Muslim voice. We don't need queers that don't want to be a queer voice. And if you're worried about being marginalized and stereotyped, please don't even show up.
There's only one way to be independent. There's only one way to be free. It's not something that someone gives to you. It's something that you take. Nobody can give you independence. Nobody can give you freedom. Nobody can give you equality or justice or anything. If you're a man, you take it. If you can't take it, you don't deserve it. Nobody can give it to you. I'm for anybody who's for freedom. I'm for anybody who's for justice. I'm for anybody who's for equality. I'm not for anybody who tells me to sit around and wait for mine.
Welcome all of you socially conscious people, all of you folks who are quarantined either because you chose to be responsible or the government through its policy or your company through its policy has you home, self-quarantined. I'm glad you guys could join us. Please hit the share button, go to YouTube, hit the share, hit the bell, let everybody know that we're on. And we'll be talking about some other things today, but one of the big things, and we have to talk about it because it is here, and that is COVID-19, the coronavirus. I'm here with Sudan Thomas, a former president of the Jersey City Board of Education, and we have on the phone, hey Diane, can I say my Vanna White?
No.
My Vanna Black?
No. Insurance goddess.
Okay. The insurance goddess,
Thank
Diane L. Murray Clements. Round of applause.
Good morning.
Good morning, everybody. So listen.
Good morning, Eric. Good morning, Dan.
Hey, good morning. Hey, Sudan, I love your tie.
What? You like my tie?
I love your tie, man. Hey,
Thank
listen.
you. Well, happy St. Patty's Day, Eric. I thought we need to look the part for today, despite everything that's going on around us.
Well, if I was going to look the part, I'd have my ears like kind of in a point. I'd be a leprechaun.
Well, you have a giant green screen behind you, so it works out.
I do have a, well, I see now you just told the secret, Sudan. See, people think that I'm somewhere in Los Angeles. See, if you look at the show, you see that the green screen is projecting another image for the people out there.
Oh, okay.
But listen, this is all a metaphor for government, though, isn't it?
Well, true. Listen, every time I see a public figure standing in front of a green screen, I think of, God rest his soul, Senator McCain, that disaster speech that he gave in front of a green screen. So I always flinch when I look at a green screen, but I see what you're saying. You probably have a Manhattan backdrop or something behind you right now.
Yeah, no, I don't know what background that is. I thought it was Seattle, but I hope it's not now, given the amount of cases in Washington. I told you before we went on air that I had a green shirt and I chose not to wear it. The reason I chose not to wear it is because if I wore the green shirt with the green screen, then my entire torso would be gone.
I know.
You see?
Totally.
Yeah, so all you would see is you'd see me from the neck up. But that's really the important part, isn't it? You know what? That went over a whole bunch of people's heads. They just didn't get it, right? Because too many of our elected officials are dead from the neck up. And that's the problem.
Amen to that.
Hey, listen, Diane, I know I told you I was going to tell you a story about my health. So yesterday, because it was a little chilly yesterday, right? I think it was about 35 degrees. Remember we were playing your video, your commercial, and we had Brian on, and it was apropos that when your video talked about circuit breakers and extension cords and space heaters, Brian actually tripped his circuit breaker with his space heater, right? So I hope he's giving you a call for insurance because he might need it. Anyway, I didn't realize how chilly it was down here in the studio. So at the end of the show, I went upstairs and I said to Amin, I said, I'm feeling really cold. And because of my neuropathy, right, my hands were really hurting and my feet were really hurting. I took my temperature. Guess what my temperature was?
What?
95.2.
Oh.
Now, if you go and look that up, right, 95 is approaching hypothermia. So,
you gotta be careful.
yeah, man, I didn't even realize it. So I had to bundle myself up. I had to put on a space heater, Diane, along with the heat in the house because it didn't come up fast enough. And I had to bundle myself under 2 blankets and get my temperature back up to 98.6. But yeah, it had dropped to 95.2.
You're right. This did make me angry.
I told you it was gonna make me angry, Diane. Listen, I do my best, and I got all of you angels around me, and Amina took good care of me, got me going, and then afterwards we went out to go see some of our clients. But I was
Oh
walking.
my God! I can't with you, Eric.
Diane, did you see the mask? Did you see my mask? I put the picture on Facebook. I said, COVID-19 ready, just in case, and I had a mask on.
But do you know your skin is the largest breathing organ
No,
in your body?
right, but the only way,
now.
but we got to be clear. If you don't touch your face, right, the
Who don't
orifices.
touch their face? I touch my face on a regular. Everybody touches their face. It's
I'm getting
involuntary.
close, but I'm not touching. Diane, but if you
You are
don't
such a hard head.
listen, if you don't touch your face, right, and you wash and you sanitize, you're gonna be okay. You're gonna be okay. So I just had to go pay some attention to my customers because my customers are restaurateurs, right? And given the nature of my business and servicing them, I needed to understand how they were doing in this climate, right? Because I needed to know about inventory, what my delivery services were going to be like to them. I needed to figure all of that out. So I made my way around, and I'll tell you, Ambassador Chicken, COVID, they are immune to COVID-19. Ambassador Chicken will be just fine during COVID-19, and so will Golden Wings and all of those other chicken places. I will tell you. Now, what will happen though? Because I think the president yesterday said that he recommended 10 or fewer people gathering in one location, right? The governor said 50. In the chicken joint, there are more than 10 people in that spot, right? So they may have to figure that piece out. So they may have to take number and have people standing outside. So thank goodness the weather's warmer, so people can stand outside and then come in and get their order and then leave. So they're gonna have to figure that piece out. But outside of that, they're good. Now, my customers who are sit-down restaurants, they saw a dramatic dip in customers. And so we're trying to work through that, and I'm trying to help them figure out how to manage during these times. But make no mistake, COVID-19, also known as the coronavirus, is here, and it is serious, and it is impacting businesses, and is impacting small people, and is impacting major corporations as well.
I'm still annoyed that you're out visiting clients, but I'm not going to say anything.
Diane, I'm taking all the precautions. I am. I really.
They stay home. You don't need to do all of that. You can talk over the phone. You don't need to be in face to face with folks.
So Eric, if I may jump in on this fast evolving situation, I think what's fascinating is if you look at the trend, if I may use that word, across the world, even though this situation originated from China, if you look at some of the Far East Asian nations like Singapore, Malaysia, Thailand, where 20 years ago we saw the outbreak and the severe impact of SARS, if you look at those nations today, they seem to have the least impact, even though from a geographical position, that's where really this virus came out from. So I think the inference that we could make from, thousands of miles away is that those guys went through a bunch of life-changing habits or operating procedures, which has allowed them to operate in a way which has potentially kind of insulated them from this from the coronavirus to a large extent, as opposed to other nations. The only outlier in that region of the world is South Korea, which saw a huge spike. But they're being able to somewhat contain it. But on the other side, if you see on the Western world, especially in mainland Europe, which I think everybody agrees is now the ground zero for the COVID-19. It's a completely different story. And I think I remember visiting buildings in Singapore many years ago where when you enter a building, they would really check your temperature through some mechanism without even touching you. There would be some, like a metal detector you're passing through, but something happens and then they know your temperature. And if you're reading a higher temperature, they will pull you off the line. So I think life as we know it is going to change. And over the years, if you have visited Asian countries like Singapore, Malaysia, and Bangkok, you see pretty much everybody walking around with masks. I'm not sure if America will settle into that routine, but I think that the life as we know it is probably going to change in the next 2 to 3 months, and possibly for the better, so that if in 5 years or 10 years something else, another mutant version of this shows up, we are better prepared.
Well, one of the things that I noticed and I do agree with you. I think that I think there are a number of reasons why some of the other countries, are moving faster in leveling off this curve that they talk about, and a lot of it has to do with the kind of governments that they have and the kind of laws that they can impose unilaterally on the public. Right here, when you have a democracy, you got to go through a little bit more red tape to get to the space. And you got to have competent people in leadership too, right? So you got to have both of those things, and both of those things are lacking. Well, one is lacking, that we have competent leadership. The other one is democracy is messy and is slow, right? You have to, you've got these 3 branches of government. You've got laws. You got to change laws. People don't want to be infringed upon, right? They want their freedoms, and we saw some of that in the government coming out, though there was a mixed message coming from the White House, and, at the state level and some of the local levels, not so much in Essex County, right? But in some of the other areas across the country, they were talking about the seriousness of this. But we have been conditioned, Sudan, in this country, to have a value for our freedom such that it works against our best interests. And so though they were telling everybody, hey, listen, social distancing and all these other kinds of things, people were exercising their freedom and deciding, well, there's no law that says I can't do this, so I'm going to go do it. And so irrespective of all the data that was coming out, folks were still hanging out at bars. People were still hanging out at parties. People were still sharing drinks. They were still doing all these things. And then the government finally said, hey, wait a minute. Did you hear what we said? And then they started to impose some laws, right? You understand what I'm saying? But that took some time to get there because of our democracy. In other areas where they said, hey, wait a minute, look, this thing is spreading, we understand what it is, and they shut it down. There was no democracy, right? There was no back talk from the people. You were going to go to jail or you were going to stay in the house. We don't want that kind of government.
I disagree. I don't think it had anything to do with democracy and whether or not they were doing these things. I think people were just ignorant to the fact, and especially in the United States, they have no respect for leadership because the leadership has misled them with misinformation and lies. They have just gone off and done what they wanted to do. So that's kind of what's happened here in the United States.
I think that's part of it, Diane. I don't disagree that that's part of it, but I do believe that there's a part of it that just says, hey, you can't tell me what to do. I think that
goes along with respect. Because even if Obama was the president and he said something, when Bush was the president, when Clinton was the president, you didn't disrespect the people blatantly saying, I'm just going to do what I'm going to do and not take heed to what was being told to them.
But again, I don't know how much of it is, I think we're mincing words here. I don't know how much of it is disrespect versus how much of it is the embodiment of our freedom, right? So I'm free to do this. There's no law that says I can't. You're telling me not to. And so now I can choose, and I'm choosing to exercise my freedom to do it. It's kind of like during Superstorm Sandy when Christie said, stay off the goddamn beach. Do you remember that? You understand what I'm saying? But think about it, Diane. But let's just look through the history of folks in this country. You'll hear that there's a Cat 5 hurricane coming, and people will do what? They'll say, I'm staying. And then what'll happen? We have to send first responders in to risk their lives to kind of get them out when things get bad. And I've always said, let them stay there and let them die. I'm sorry. I'm not going to risk somebody else's life for your foolishness. You see, and until we get to that point in this country where we say, you know what, you want to exercise your right to do that, then fine. But it's the same way we know whether it's climate change or whatever it is that's causing the fires in California or the mudslides, and people still building their homes on the side of mountains, right? I say if your house falls into the ocean, then that's on you. Don't come looking for the government to bail you out. You know better. See, we gotta get to the point where this idea of exercising your freedom at the expense of people doesn't work anymore. See, so whether it's folks deciding, oh, you know what? I don't need to wear a mask if I don't want to wear a mask. There's no law that says I have to wear a mask. Or I'm going to build my house where I want to build my house. Even though I saw 2,500 houses burn down, I'm still going to build my house there. Or I'm not going to leave even though I know a Cat 5 hurricane is coming. And then when it comes, I want to call the National Guard and have some woman's husband risk his life and risk orphaning his kids to save my dumb ass. See, we got to be done with that. We got to be done with that here.
Eric, I think you make perfect sense, but I think we have to go back in history. I think this is it's to the point of who we are as Americans. Because if you look at these pioneers or the folks who came originally transcending across the last 300, 400 years of immigration, essentially we are talking about folks who rebelled against the king, or except for the folks who crossed the densities were brought against their will, but eventually broke free. We're talking about the essence of who we are as Americans, which is, to be wanting to be able to go about their life. Now, I've been in touch with a lot of my libertarian friends, and they are appalled at this, what they call as a government overreach. And the thing is that I think everybody needs to kind of understand that we are dealing with a very uncharted territory here, but it is uncharted territory because, like you said, the leadership at the top did not take this seriously when it first emerged a month and a half or 2 months ago. I mean, we had the President of the United States trying to belittle the situation. Even yesterday, Eric, at the press conference, he said this is going to get washed away. I mean, I don't understand what the science is or the logic behind that kind of a
But you know
statement.
what? Listen, I'm not going to, and yes, I think that Donald Trump exacerbates the issue, but not the cause of the issue. Because before he was president, we had Superstorm Sandy here in New Jersey. And folks were told to stay off the beach. And you saw video footage of people heading down to the beach. And Donald Trump was nowhere around. You've seen whether it was hurricanes in Florida or hurricanes other places. You've seen people who stayed in their homes when there were earthquakes or tsunamis coming or all these different alerts. Donald Trump had nothing to do with that. That is a mentality. And now I'm saying, yes, he's adding salt to that wound, but we need to deal with this screwed up mentality.
But Eric, the government of the day has a obligation, a moral imperative to educate the folks. What do you and I know about that virus, which we can't even see? We're not biologists or scientists or doctors. We have to be educated by the government of the day, which is in place, so that we know how serious this is.
Let me say this.
The President of the United States says it's going to get washed away.
Let me say this. Let me say this. I watched Donna Jackson. She had a video, and I think it's got like 3,000 views now. She was out yesterday videotaping, saying that she had gone to the store, and while she was at the store, she was telling people in there, there is a curfew. You have to be in by 8 o'clock. And she said she was alarmed that so many people in that store did not know that there was a curfew. And she said that the government has to do a better job. And you know what I said? I said people are not intellectually curious. They don't want to know. They don't see if you take these people.
No,
Listen,
no,
let me finish
no,
my
you
point.
can't.
And then
Everybody has a cell phone. Why can't the government? Yesterday at 2:00 I got an Amber Alert. Why can't the government of the day, whether it's a city or a county or a state, send these things to folks? Cell phone. Everybody, almost everybody in the United States.
Well,
They
I mean,
can't. They
but-
can't
Yeah,
do
these
that,
people
but they
don't
don't
have
have the
information.
knowledge to do it. They are not smart enough to say, we need to reach everybody, because they are not trying to reach everybody. You
That I
have to
agree with you,
understand
Diane.
how they work.
listen,
If
I
you
agree with
could
Diane on that.
contact them, you could.
listen. I'm not disagreeing that they could, but here's what I'm saying. Listen to what I'm saying. I'm saying if I know that there's a virus, guess what channel my TV is on? It's on the news channel. It's not on Honey Boo Boo. It's not on 90 Day Fiance. It's not on any of those other BS channels. It's on the news channel. But I'm telling you, far too many people right now, if you were to go in their homes, the young people are playing video games. They're on Twitter or Instagram with nonsense. And then the older people are watching craziness. They don't have their TVs dialed into the news, because if they did, they would get the information.
Eric, this is the reason why I say the government of the day has to use multiple channels to communicate with people. But if you just hold your thought for a second, we are hearing a lot of input and direction from city, state, and from the federal government on what we need to do. And I think the state came out really, comprehensively with a bunch of ideas and direction yesterday. Jersey City has been really ahead of the cycle in this, in terms of calling for social distancing and shutting down bars and public places and all of that stuff. However, I want to share a bit of a statistic for you and for our viewers. If you look at two countries which have been, you can say, at the epicenter of this whole situation, one is South Korea and one is Italy. Okay. Now, we've been sharing a lot of things about social distancing and washing hands, and all of that is super critical. But one of the things that, unfortunately, in the United States, we haven't really heard about as much as I think it should be, is about testing. And so here's where this number is important. If you look at South Korea, it's a small country, okay? They're a traditional ally of the United States. They have managed to hit a number of 4,000 testings per a million population. So for every million South Koreans, they're able to test 4,000 people.
Right.
And you know what the fatality rate or the mortality rate of the guys of South Korea is at this point? It's 0.5%.
Correct. So I understand that testing is our issue.
Let me just share the story in Italy. Italy, which is the epicenter, they are able to only test about 800 people for every million.
Right.
And guess what their mortality rate is? 6%. Whereas the WHO has said that the average rate across the world is 2.5%. That's the story, Eric. We got to start talking about testing.
No.
And we got to start
we
testing
do.
first.
Right. So we listen. So then let's have the conversation about testing. You know why you're not being tested? I'll tell you why you're not being tested. It's politics.
We got nothing.
It's money.
We got nothing to be able to test. That's the problem.
No. But
The
no,
President of the United States is on the phone. Eric, the President of the United States on the phone with the governor of New York
But
and New Jersey
listen.
saying,
I don't
"Guys,
want
you gotta buy your own
to.
ventilator."
But I'm not going to do this. I'm not just going to blame Trump. I'm going to blame the Democrat and the Republican Party. It is our government, right? It is politics. We're not being tested because of politics. You have one side who's trying to oust the president. You have another side who's trying to get the president reelected, and in the middle of that are all of us. That is the fact. That is the fact.
Eric, whatever you say, there may be a part to it, but the reality is, if you look across the world, if you look at every country where there has been a perfect example or a near perfect example of the country being able to control the situation, that has come from the national government. This is a national problem. It's not a state problem. It's not a city problem. It's not a county problem. It has to come from the federal government.
Right. Sudan, I think we're talking over each other. I'm not disputing that. What I'm saying to you is this. In Washington, let's understand how Washington is made up. Washington is made up by lobbyists who work for corporations. So every decision, they work for corporations and they work for Wall Street. They work for
Yeah.
So let's understand. So when we talk about government, let's let's really have the conversation. Our government is not these politicians that we elect. Our government are the lobbyists who represent these corporations. And so every single decision that is being made, including testing, is coming from these lobbyists. And they're looking at how it's going. Let me finish my point, Sudan. And it's going, and they're looking and they're determining how it's going to impact what? Impact the economy, not impact us. How it's going to impact the economy. And what they understood early is that in doing all of the testing during a presidential campaign election, that they would have revealed what? That you had an enormous number of people who were infected with COVID-19. They didn't want that to happen because we already see what's happening to the stock market. So they were trying not to curb the infection. They were trying to slow down the crashing of the stock market. Let's have the honest conversation. Yeah, right. I know what I'm talking about. And so we have none of this has anything to do with us. We are all collateral damage.
But Eric, I have to go back to Trump on that because what was the single largest tangible response that Trump did to the coronavirus? Which was essentially he put out $1.5 trillion into the market 10 days ago. And what happened? That money was wiped out in 1 hour. Exactly 1 hour. And now you have the airlines asking for $50 billion. He's talking about a $500 billion payroll tax, which is really going to impact the rich and the real upper class. There's no discussion.
But Sudan, listen. But what I'm trying to get you to do is this. But listen, I need you to stop fixating on Trump. This information isn't coming from Trump. You have all those lobbyists. You have all of those folks on Wall Street and in corporate America with their hand up his rectum, moving his mouth. They're telling him what to say. This isn't coming from him. They're trying to protect themselves. See, don't make it about Trump.
He's the president of the United States.
No, but it's not a. Listen, he's a figurehead. It could be Biden in there, and the same thing would be happening. It could be any of them in there. So it's not about him. It is about the structure of our government, which is owned by corporate America. And that's why we are not being tested. See, it's not about Donald Trump. See, as long as we keep talking about Donald Trump, we miss the boat. This thing is much bigger than him.
We can stop talking about Trump, but unfortunately he's the president of the United States. But let's talk about testing. There is clear data now, empirical data that shows that countries who have been able to be nimble and fast and agile in their response to the situation, and who have been able to put together a mass testing initiative, have managed to somehow control this or flat curve it, as we say. So while the governors, the tri-state governors yesterday announcing various measures, which we have to applaud them because, again, they're not going to like this. But in the absence of federal guidelines, in the absence of federal direction, we have 3 governors, regional governors from New York, Connecticut, and New Jersey coming together, putting together a comprehensive package of measures which will at least protect the 25, 30 million citizens of the tri-state region. We need to start moving into the second phase, which is really figuring out how we deal with testing, but also parallelly protecting the economy. And when we talk about economy, I'm not talking about the stock market, but I'm talking about the middle class folks whose mortgage is now on the block, people who can't afford to pay rent. This is what we need to start talking about. It was welcome relief to hear Senator Romney talking about a $1,000 check to folks. But I think it's important, if you look at certain nations, like Italy, for example, they've already suspended mortgage payments for, I think, the foreseeable future. Those are the kind of things that we need to immediately, press into
I couldn't agree with you more. But again, here is the issue. What they're trying to do is this. They are trying to spread this calamity out. Right? They're trying to spread it out. And they've talked about this, right? They've said, look, if we had an overrun right now of infected people going to our hospitals, we wouldn't be able to. So one of the things they want to do is spread out the contagion itself. So they're recognizing that people are going to get it. They want them to get it over a period of time, so that they don't collapse our medical infrastructure, right? So they know that. And
no, Eric, not necessarily, because the whole goal behind social distancing is that the
I'm not talking about social distancing. I'm talking about multiple things here. Social distancing, right? What they're trying to do is they're trying to limit the spread. But what they're looking
trying
at,
to break the link. What they're doing is they're trying to break the link so that even if somebody has, for instance, let's say person A has the virus right now, he's a healthy male or female, and let's say he's able to ride it out. By him not coming into contact with folks for say 2 to 3 weeks, he's no longer transmitting.
We talked about that yesterday,
other
Sudan.
folks.
I'm not disputing. Listen, I'm not disputing that. What I'm saying is this. What they're looking at right now, and every decision that they're making right now, is based on modeling from China, from Japan, from Europe, and they're looking and they're saying, this is what we need to do in order to change the trajectory of this curve, right? We can agree to that, right?
Yeah, I think we
including
can,
social distancing, right? But what they also know through this data, because they have taken so long to get to where they are now, that there is likely an enormous number of people who are infected. They know that through the modeling.
Even now as we speak, for example, right now they say about 4,158 Americans have tested positive. But I think the number is way higher because of the lack of testing.
I agree. We're not disagreeing. But what I'm saying is beyond that point, right? What they're looking at is the collapse of a lot of things, and they're trying to manage it. They're trying to manage the information as it comes out to avoid panic, right? Avoid people overrunning emergency rooms and other kinds of things. So the way that they're trying to put information out, including how many people are infected, has to do with, listen, you see how much the stock market dropped when Donald Trump said that this thing is going to go until August? As he was speaking, the stock market plummeted.
Eric, you're not going to like this. But I think the whole spreading out in Donald Trump saying this is going to go to August and September, because I think he probably is hoping at the back of his mind if he can use the situation to either postpone or cancel the elections. God knows what is in his mind. This is a very unpredictable person we're dealing with.
Listen,
God knows what he has in his mind.
But you keep focusing on him. What I'm saying to you is this. They are concerned. So here's what I see. And I'm chuckling. I'm chuckling at this, guys. We see we see democratic socialism happening right now, right? Everything that Dr. King said should occur, all of the things that this progressive movement has been about, which is providing boots to the bootless, right? That's happening right now. And we're nowhere near being like Cuba or Venezuela or any of these other places. No Marxism, no communism, right? It is caring and loving and looking out for your fellow man. That is democratic socialism, and we see it happening. But during the election,
are you saying that's bad, Eric? Are
no,
you saying that's a bad
no,
thing?
I'm saying it's a wonderful thing. But what I'm saying is this, that when we were talking about democratic socialism, right, on the Democrat side as well as the Republican side, they were linking it to communism. They were linking it to something dirty, something nasty, something that we shouldn't be involved in. Lo and behold, look at what the Creator has done. He has brought us into this place of democratic socialism, where we're looking at how not to have people, how government can be the bridge to keep people from losing their homes, to keep people from being homeless, who are renters, to keep people who are food insecure from starving, to keep people who don't have health care. When we're talking about health care for all, and people say, well, how do you pay for it? Nobody's concerned about how to pay for it now. Everybody's figure out how to take care of people. And that's the nation we should be. And that's what's
It's a
happening
reality
right
check.
now.
There's no doubt about it. It's a reality check.
I'm sorry?
It is no doubt a reality check. I don't know if I want to credit the creators for this situation. I think this coronavirus, a lot of folks say it's man-made or China, and some people say, it's a nuisance. Regardless, I think you're right on the money, Rick. The fact that when you see the scale of the government responses, I mean, you have the National Guard out in New Rochelle, New York. You have the governor of New Jersey saying he's calling up the National Guard. You have a full-scale government, intervention of the situation. And yes, you're right. The same folks who were 3 weeks ago making a full-throated appeal against the democratic socialism or the government playing roles in healthcare, those folks have gone silent right now. Okay, but what is
Sultan, your sound is frazzled.
You may have to put your phone to your ear because people are saying they can't understand
hear you clearly.
Yeah, and what is concerning is that the responses to the classic epic response of focusing 50,000 feet above sea level, and when I say 50,000 feet above sea level, it's really focused on the rich and the richer, but not on the middle class. You've seen $1.5 trillion, really gone like candy floss in 1 hour. Now they are coming up and asking for $50 billion. Whereas I thought part of the social distancing was you don't travel. So I don't understand. We understand that if the airlines are grounded and the utilization goes down to say 40-50%, but over there 70% load factors, that industry is going to get crippled. But on the other side, gas has gone down. I mean, the oil at the barrel is now selling at $20 as opposed to $75 to $80 2 years ago. So there has to be some mechanics that are also parameters that are in favor of the airline industry. But it's these big vultures that always come in and ask for bailouts, whereas the guy on the street who doesn't have the ability to pay his mortgage or his rent or his car payment, there's no solution. Nobody's talking about those guys.
But you know what?
So what solutions do you anticipate should be the government? Because government is listening to us. So what would be your solution to let's just talk about mortgages and people in their mortgages. What would be your solution for those government officials that are listening?
Yeah, so I think the first thing that they have to figure out is some kind of a suspension of mortgage payments for a couple of months. Say if whether it's 2 months or 3 months, so that amount of relief is pressed into homes directly. You don't have to give the bailout money, in a way it goes straight to the banks or the airlines all the time. You could give relief from ground up, sort of trickling down. So I think that's something that they should consider. Senator Romney came out with a cool idea yesterday that every family should get $1,000 a month.
That wasn't his idea, but wait a minute, but stop.
We just heard it yesterday.
So we had Yang during the entire time that he was on stage was talking about universal basic income. He said everybody should get $1,000 a month, and everybody laughed at him. I want you to understand what's going on here. And now I'm going to answer the question.
No, but I don't think Romney's talking about universal income. What he's talking about is a contingency $1,000.
No, but here's what I'm saying, Sudan. Listen.
Yeah.
And Diane, you asked the question, what should government do? Government should stop looking at people as being the commodity to the wealth and power of the top 1%. If they stop looking at people like that,
I agree. Yes.
Right? If they didn't look at them like that, then the policies that they would set would be different. But all of the policies that they're trying to set in place are to continue the current power structure of us being the commodity to their wealth and power. That's it. And so we need to.
So Eric, if I can just finish that question.
Absolutely.
To Diane, but I want to give some historical reference, Diane. If you look at, we could look at what happened, in New York City around 9/11. So if you remember back then in 2001, the economy wasn't already doing too well going in. Now, around July of 2001, the quarterly job loss for New York City, all the boroughs, not just Manhattan, was about 64,000 jobs were projected to be lost in that quarter, October, November, December. But what happened ultimately because of 9/11 was that the city, New York City, all boroughs, lost about 85 to 90,000 jobs more than projected. So instead of losing what they thought would be 65,000 jobs, they lost about 150,000 jobs. And in addition, of course, on account of everything that happened on 9/11, the impact on the economy was about 100 billion. 85 billion is what the figures say, but we're talking about 2001 figures. So if folks could look at the and say, how did New York City respond at the time? They came back with a small business, a kind of a grant mechanism where the government was able to give the slabs of $10,000 to small businesses to be able to recover from that situation. So I think we have to start looking as a nation as to how we are able to protect the small businesses, because we all know that the United States is run on the basis of small business. We are a nation of entrepreneurs, and that's what really runs the economy. But to Eric's point, somehow the focus has always been on the high, on the rich and the elite. So there's a triangle here. The top end of the triangle, the stock market, the wealthy, yes, there needs to be a solution. But there are two other prongs of the triangle, which is the small businesses and the middle class. There has to be a proper, well thought out program, a financial solution for these guys. And that includes putting mortgages on hold, putting rents on hold, putting car payments on hold, if there are people paying health insurance out of pocket. And remember, all of these guys are subsidized. The banks are subsidized. The health insurance companies are subsidized. Look at Blue Cross. They have like $3 billion in their surplus. So all of these guys can take 2 to 3 months of no payments so that it allows us to ride out this storm. Now, they say restaurants can only do takeout, which means no more sitting and dining. So all those guys who are earning tip wages by serving folks who are coming and sitting, they're out of a job since yesterday. How are those guys going to be able to pay their rents? How are they going to pay their car payments? How are they going to pay their mortgages? That has to be thought through and come out very quickly, not wait for the disaster to get over and then try to rebuild from ruin, but try to anticipate so that we don't have to deal with economic ruin. That, I think, the government of the day has picked that. And you can't blame them right now, because right now the focus is on the disease management. But quickly these two things have to come in. But again, I'm going to go back to testing. Testing is going to be the key in this, because we are a large nation, a population of 400 million. I mean, Italy and Spain and Germany, these are small nations, but high-density population. Ours, we are a large nation. So we got to go back to testing, and I think that's really, I hope that answers the question they have.
Right. So I don't disagree with any of it. All I'm saying in simple terms, I've talked about this to our listeners before, and I'm going to start off by saying it again. When America has a cold, foundational Black Americans have pneumonia, and then and then it goes from there, right? But we're in the basement, and so as we look at what's going on, we have to look at it through those lenses, right, of the class that we're in. And so when you say that there needs to be testing, I don't disagree with that. I mean, I say there doesn't need to be any homelessness, right? There should be no hunger. There should be, we can go down the list of things that should and shouldn't be, but we have to get to the root cause of why they are. And the reason they are is the motivation by those who are in power is to position us as the commodity to their wealth and their continued power.
Absolutely. And so, whatever you say, that is the inherent situation.
Right. That is the inherent. That is the inherent.
There is no doubt in terms of what. So
what I'm getting at is, what I'm getting at, Sudan, is this: all of the numbers I think are important for people to hear, right? For you to talk about how New York was able to overcome the horrific situation during 9/11. But at the end of the day, the only way that we're going to extricate ourselves from this situation, this perpetual, situation we find ourselves in, is to seize economic and political power, right? Because
there's no doubt about it.
Right, because those who are in power are going to continue the tug of war to stay on top, right? And so we can talk about what we should have, but the thing that we must have is economic and political power.
But to your point, Mike, that first reaction, right? And if I just can finish this, if you don't mind. But that first reaction to this problem of pumping $1.5 trillion into the economy, that's symptomatic and validates what you're saying. They don't care about us. They don't care about the middle class guy. They don't care about the guy who's homeless. The only thing that they care about, the system is geared towards supporting and being concerned about, is the rich and the
That's
rich.
all it was
Look
for.
at the natural reaction. Look at the natural reaction. The first reaction before ordering masks and ventilators and testing, the first reaction is, let's protect the wealthy and let's put $1.5 trillion.
That's absolutely
Now, that's symptomatic of the problem that you're talking about.
Yes. Yes, and we need, and then
Sorry,
what
Dan,
happened?
go ahead.
But then what happened, Sudan? They pumped the money in. They expected people to go and spend, and what did they do? People held on to the right.
Yeah, they lost it. Yeah.
That's right. And then they said, wait a minute. They said consumers are not spending. We have to convince them now to spend, right? Spend.
And even that's going to be the exact same thing that's going to happen with this whole $500 billion payroll tax cut, because that would be the effect. The guys who on the top who get the money, they're just going to hold on to the cash. They're not going to come out to the mom and pop stores and spend the money. Who are the folks who are going to spend the money? It's you and me.
And that's why we are the commodity to their wealth and to their power. So they understand the game. They understand it. And now, so Diane, here's what I say. We are in a perfect situation to understand how government, when they want to, can move very quickly to do things, right? So they put up these they put up these masquerades and they talk about and deflections. Well, how much is it going to cost? How are we going to get that done? When they want to get something done, they get it done. When they wanted to take care, they put $4.3 billion down there. When they wanted to do this thing, they put $1.3 trillion into the gun. When they want to get it done, they get it done, right? And so we have to now look and say, you know what? If they really wanted to do something about homelessness, they really wanted to do something about food insecurity, if they really wanted to do something about all these issues, they could do it. They don't want to do it. And so I'm saying to my listening audience, our listening audience, we are in hospice. They're not trying to cure us. I keep telling you this. They're not trying to cure us. They're trying to keep us comfortable as we die. That's it. And now, if you want, like Malcolm said, nobody's going to give you your freedom. You can't sit around and wait for it. If you want it, you have to fight for it. And if you're not willing to fight for it, then you do not deserve it. And so now, when I sit and talk about how local electeds are in part responsible for this apathy, this diseased thinking about your condition in life, I'm saying it because they have been positioned, right, to socially engineer you to stay on the plantation. Right? So none of them are working to empower you. None of them are having the conversation that I'm having with you right now. None of them are trying to extricate you. None of them are trying to empower you in any way whatsoever. Their job is to be slave catchers. Their job are to be Negro whisperers. Their jobs are to keep you in the condition of being the commodity to the wealth and power of those that control those black electeds that you have elected to office. And you have to kick them off the island. Got to get rid of them. And you have to look and see where the revolution is. You have to see where the fight to blow this whole thing up is. And that's the fight you have to be in. If you're in the fight with people who are part of this system, they're the ones who are constantly plotting to keep you where you are, when they know goddamn well they can set policies to get you out of it.
Yeah, but Eric, you have a point here, but let's accept it. Look at the history of the Democratic Party. That has been the party as the vanguard, at least in the last 60, 70 years.
Absolutely.
Of actually leading from the front on the social revolution, or this democratic social revolution that you're talking about. The Republican Party is the party that has sat it out, even though 4 years ago they were the party that actually led from the front in cleansing this nation of one of its biggest evils. But if you see since the 40s, it's the Democratic Party that has actually been at the vanguard of heralding the social, democratic socialist revolution which people now consider as like a pariah term. But the reality is, it is the Democratic Party that has stood, is the party that created Social Security, protecting the labor unions, Medicare, all of these protection safety nets in the system, what we call as entitlements, what the Republicans call as entitlements, but what we call as social safety nets, were actually brought into place by Democratic presidents and Democratic administrations of the day, which the Republicans have constantly, at every stage, at every turn, tried to fight by delegislating. And now that they've realized that delegislation is not possible, they have taken the value to a different front, which is defunding. They're trying to defund the programs and kill it so that the law will remain there, but there's no money to back the law, and that's how they want to win this war against the middle class poverty in America.
Well, I think that's in part true. I think that the other part of this is this. You know, when you have
part two from you, Eric.
When you have a Democratic Party, though, that is not working to empower people. The Democratic Party is not working to empower folks. So if the idea is that I'm just going to give you a turkey, right, and then me giving you a turkey keeps you voting for me, right, so there are no term limits and I stay in office for 40 years because I gave you another turkey, that doesn't do us any good. Let's look. We've not benefited. And in the end, we've not benefited. Democrat in office, Republican in office, we have not benefited. We've done worse. We've done worse. We need to get rid of this current construct. We need to look at both parties as being dangerous and harmful. And this isn't just me. This was what George Washington said. George Washington said, beware of this. This two-party system is a problem because at some point they will turn inwardly and look out for their own best interest. And that's where we are right now. At the end of the day, they collude with one another. See, they'll fight to a certain extent, Sudan, but they won't engage at a level that will cause sacrifice to one another. You see?
I agree, but Eric, I'm not sure to accept the fact that the Democratic Party today, the institution of the party, does not represent the rank and file, the aspirations of the rank and file Democratic members or the American middle class or even the lower income class. However, having said that, there is now a fight for the soul of the party in terms of its evolution as to where it goes from here. Now, it may not be everything, for example, that Bernie Sanders wants. It may not be everything that Joe Biden wants, but there may be some middle ground that may come out of all of this, which could be the flag bearer of the future of the Democratic Party. But at least the Democratic Party is engaged in that discussion, in that democratic debate, in that democratic dissent. What is the other party doing? Nothing.
Well,
we'll $1.5 trillion into the stock market.
Yeah. Well, I'll answer that question in a second. We had a caller. Caller, go.
Hey, good morning, guys. I just called to disagree with your guest. And by the way, it's hard to really even hear him, but he talked about the safety net and the Democrats protecting the safety net. And in an illusional way, it appears that they are, but they are pulling at the cornerstones of those same. The Democratic Party is pulling at those same cornerstones of the so-called entitlement and safety nets that's supposed to, in all illusion, protect us. But the Democratic Party, if they're backing Joe Biden, and people are lining up blue all the way, those safety nets are in trouble under his presidency, just like they are under Trump presidency. And the same failed leadership that has caused this pandemic, which has been forecast for years, and people have ignored it. And it just took one change of a presidency to leave us all vulnerable to this condition. So you can harp on the Democratic line, but if we don't put the right kind of people in Democratic leadership, those same safety nets are gonna be in trouble for us all. But the two wings of the same bird, the Republican Party and the Democratic Party, which are both corporate-led. That's all I want to say about that.
All right.
Have a good day.
Thanks for the call. All right, so Sudan, there were some other things that you wanted to have a conversation about. I'm going through. You sent me an agenda item list. So where do you want to go next? I'm ready.
I just want to thank you and thank your viewers because we obviously secured a big win in our a small win in the right direction, but it was a big win because of what we went against, which was essentially the mayor of the city who had originally said that he would only fund $40 million from the payroll tax for the school board budget, eventually reversed his position and funded the entirety of the state aid cut of $86 million, which is a big win for the school district. Again, the payroll tax in itself legitimizes the draconian state aid cuts of the state, so it's kind of an oxymoron, but at the end of the day, the school district of Jersey City, which is facing a $150 million budget gap, it at one point looked like the mayor was going to short the district, but it now looks like, based on his revised position and his commitment, he is abiding by the law. He is funding the district fully to the extent of the payroll tax certification which he needs to do, which is a great win for all of us, because at one point, a month ago, his position was he would only fund $30 million of the cut. He wanted the school board to limit their tax cuts to $25 million. He wanted them to cut or eliminate $30 million from the budget, which is a net zero if you look at it. And if they didn't listen to him, he wanted to fire the board and appoint his own board, fire an elected board and appoint their own board. So on that front, I think there's good positive news from the school board. They still have another $60 million that they have to solve for in the budget. But like I've always said, they have two great leaders at the top of the district. We have Franklin Walker, son of the soil, who's the superintendent. We have Lorenzo Richardson, who's the president of the school board. Two African-American men at the helm of the district. They should be the time and space to do their job without interference and threats from all around. I think they will come through for the district. And it's a good opportune moment for the district to build on the work that we've done in the last 3 years. But the fact of the matter is, last year when we balanced the budget, we had a carry forward deficit of $100 million, which we have been able to cut in half to $50 million through the work that we did. So we have to build on these gains. And again, it's still concerning because the mayor's proposal to only fund $10 and $5 million for next year still stands, but we'll cross that bridge when it comes. But I just wanted to put that out to your viewers that for now, it looks like the Jersey board, at least on the payroll piece of it, has dodged the bullet.
Well, that is fantastic. So you also say that you wanted to have a conversation about and we started talking a little bit about it, just in terms of how COVID-19 is impacting the general election. They are suspending some voting, right? Some primaries. And we don't know where this is ultimately going to go. I know you believe that Donald Trump may be looking to push this thing out, realizing that as the economy continues to suffer, and that being the main thing that he was going to run on, a strong economy, right? Promises made, promises kept, I think, is his, and keep America great. Right, so keep America great, promises made, promises kept. Those two brands are in grave danger right now, because when you look at where America is, when you look at what's going on, you say, well, what's so great about it? Right? So I don't know if his ultimate goal is to push that down, kick the can down the road and try to suspend the elections. I don't even know whether or not, in terms of our Constitution, he could actually do that. But what I do know about the general election is this is an opportunity, like I said earlier, this is an opportunity for folks to really look and see how your government, right? When I say you don't have a government, that they don't represent you, that you can see it, right? It's tangible now. It's not, none of it is theoretical. These are real things that are happening to real people. These are folks who, again, whether we're talking about food insecure people, whether we're talking about the folks who have jobs, allow for sick leave, all of the things that you have these various groups fighting for the everyday person. For the everyday person. Now you see the importance of it. When something like this happens, you see the importance of it. And so the question now to all of these millions upon millions of people, for me, is this. How are you going to respond? Are you finally going to listen to the candidates, not just at the level, but at your local level? See, because that's where it really counts. Because it's at these local levels that these folks can have direct impact on some of the things that affect you. But then beyond that, they are the undergirding of what takes place at the national level, because they support it through their endorsements, through their financial contributions, and through the political machinery that they put in place at the local level when these national candidates come into your towns. So how are you holding them accountable for your current circumstances?
So Eric, let me talk about my fears about the election with Trump to begin with, okay? You're right. This whole Make America Great Again, I've said this publicly, locally in many, many forums all my life. I truly believe in the American exceptionalism, but we as a nation need to, continue to, across generations, make our union perfect. However, here is the problem. He is obviously upset right now that the economy is tanking, and he's already started. He's the only guy who's talking about August and September. He's already talking about beyond the summer through fall, and he's the guy who's just saying once the temperature goes up, it's going to go away. Here's the way he can do it if he wants to do it, and let me explain this to you and your viewers. The majority of the United States are Republican-controlled states. Because of gerrymandering, because of whatever reason, the majority of the United States, the states are actually the legislators. The state legislators, state legislatures are controlled by the Republican Party. Now, this is what Donald Trump can do. He does not have the power or the authority to cancel the election. The only body that can cancel or postpone or reschedule an election is Congress. Now, they don't have the votes to do that. They don't have the votes in the House, and I don't think any senator with the mind is going to do that. So what's the workaround? There is a workaround. He could potentially do this. And this is a guy who has his entire life is built on circumventing the system and working around the system. If all the Republican governed states, they have the authority. Each state has the authority to cancel the election. New York State, which is a democratically governed state, does have the constitutional authority to cancel the presidential election. If all the Republican states cancel the election, if they do not hold public presidential general election in November this year, and if they just assign their electors to Trump, you know what's the number they get? 294. That's 294. Now, just to be clear, they don't even have to cancel the election. They could have the election to go through, and they can direct the electors to vote for Trump regardless of the state outcome, and Trump could still get 294. However, if this corona thing is abused and used by Trump to remain in office, there is a path for it, and that's what folks are. And historically, if you see this nation, you've seen Republican governors and legislatures blindly booing Trump. They're actually afraid to go against him because of what would happen to them in the next cycle of local elections. So if he's able to convince that all the Republican governors to cancel general election in November, he's the next president of the United States. He's got 294 electoral votes. And that's the concern. It's a real thing. It's not some kind of a 9/11 conspiracy or anything. This is real. It's the law. Congress can cancel or reschedule. Most likely they can because there's no number. But ultimately, as you know, the election is a state matter. It's a state law issue. And if each Republican governed state cancels the election and decides to award the electors, then Trump is in office for another term.
That's interesting. I didn't think about it like that.
It's real.
So-
Whether
so-
he will do it, I mean, he's
So
obnoxious.
why?
He's done a lot
So
of
here's my question: Why do you need why do you need coronavirus to do that? Then, if that is the law, why wouldn't they just make a decision that each Republican state, right, each red state, just simply say, you know what, it's a state matter, right? We don't need to offer any explanation for it. We don't need a ruse. We're just going to do it. We believe that in this day and time, given the vast concerns of the American people, we believe the best person to lead us for the next 4 years is Donald Trump. And so what we're going to do is cancel the election, and we're going to allow the election to do what they are constitutionally allowed to do. Why not just do that?
Well, any action will be challenged in court, right? I mean, any election will be challenged in court. So, I'm not suggesting that the Republican governors will do this. The fact of the matter is that there is a constitutional loophole which allows that path. Now, for them to exercise that path, you would think that most of them being lawyers would want to take a path which gives them the best legal firewall. And that would be an emergency or a pandemic emergency like this. You can't just wake up and say, hey, I want Donald Trump to be the president. Then he ceased to be a democracy. And that can be challenged in court. Remember what
wait a minute, but I don't know that it. See, but here becomes the issue, right? You informed me of something I didn't know about. But if we were to play this thing out, Sudan, it doesn't cease to be a democracy, because at the end of the day, on the Democrat side, what are they saying? They're saying, look, you can have, when Bernie Sanders seemed to be in the lead and seemed to be running away with Democratic nomination prior to Super Tuesday, they were saying, what? We're going to take this thing all the way to the convention. And they said that what we may very well do is have the super delegates, right, override the vote of the American people. And the super delegates, who essentially are just elected officials, decide who the nominee was going to be. And so they weren't concerned about whether or not there was a democracy, whether it was going to somehow shake our democracy, because what they said is, look, at the end of the day, the American people elected us to make these kinds of decisions. And so,
yes, but it's not. I agree with your concern, and this is something that we faced when Hillary Clinton was running against Obama in 2008. You remember when Clinton, when Obama won some of the states in the end of March, April, the only way Clinton could beat him was if the super delegates, she had a huge commanding lead at the time, would continue to stay with her. She might have ended up being the nominee. So this has happened, this has played out in the past to the Democratic Party, but you can't compare, it's not apples to apples. The Democratic Party saying they're going to take it to the convention and have the super delegates decide, which is within the realm of the law, of the bylaws, and they've called themselves a private organization, if you recall. Somebody that called themselves a private organization. I don't think so, because they may be a private organization, but they have a public footprint. But it's very different from deciding, trying to disfranchise millions of voters and say, I'm going to go. It's established. Yes, it has tones, it has overtones, but yes. Now, the right thing for the Democratic Party to do would be to change their bylaws so that in future you don't have a takeover from within or from the outside.
Right, but one of the things,
who you talk to, Eric, depending on who you talk to in the Democratic Party, one group of folks say, hey, this guy's not even a Democrat. He's come from outside and taking over the party, just like Trump took over the Republican Party. If you talk to the other guys, they say, well, we want Biden because, we need Sanders because he truly represents and channelizes the energy and the philosophy and the ideology of the group that is really going to be the future of this nation. But so both are right. I mean, that's what democracy is about. And ultimately, people make a choice.
But here, that we need to really take into consideration, and I didn't want to go down this whole civics lesson, but we're really not a democracy, are we? We're a republic.
Sorry?
Right? And so when you understand the difference between the two, right? A democracy means mob rule. And so a republic says, no, we bring things into line a little bit. And so though you may have a number of people want to move in a particular direction, you now have this safeguard in the republic that says, no, we understand what you want to do, but now here's our fail safe. So whether the fail safe,
you're right. But that's how the founding fathers set up the whole election for the president alone. For whatever reason they did this.
Come on. So hit the share button, guys, because you believe that it is a democracy, but it's not. It is a republic, and so
it is a republic. Yes, you're absolutely right. But Eric, there has never been in the history an election has never been turned against the will of the people.
Right, because fact, we've never.
There have only been 2 or 3 electors in the history of the nation who have voted against people. And that has not even changed the result even in their own state. But so that is what is the strength of the system. I mean, the history shows that we have this thing which is kind of skewed and which makes it, you're right, we are a republic, or in the strictest sense. However, in the history of our nation, no popular will of the people has ever been overturned by electors going rogue.
Listen, we are experiencing a stress test here with our Constitution, with our democracy, with our republic. And so I'm saying that everything's on the table right now, Sudan, because you have a struggle like we've not seen before in our history. Between, when you have such a disparity in wealth and in what exists in terms of poverty, there has to be a breaking point, and I think that, or tipping point, and I think that if we're not at it, we're very, very close to it. I'm not sure what's going to happen. I'm not sure. We'll see. We have elections coming up now again, right? In some states, they're calling this mini Super Tuesday. And we'll see. Biden is ahead, double digits in a lot of these places. But when we have a guy who stood and said before his donors that nothing was going to fundamentally change, the question that I'm asking folks is this: do you believe that things should change? Do you believe that things should change? Because that guy said nothing's going to fundamentally change. And are we so naive to believe that, in one, he has, kind of changed his thinking about things such that he truly embraces what Elizabeth Warren was fighting for? Or are we smart enough to look and say, politicians will say whatever they need to do to get elected and then make excuses once they get elected about why they can't do the thing that they promised to do in the first place? I don't know. But we are at I think we are at a tipping point.
I mean, I like the stress test analogy, but here's the thing though, at this point, each one of these guys, whether it's Biden or Sanders, they need another 1,100 or 1,200 delegates to win plurality, which means we've got a long way to go. This ain't over at this point of time. So whether you're a Sanders supporter who's already cribbing about, how the system is rigged, or if you're a Biden supporter who says Sanders should pull out, I think it's too early for anybody to make judgments. If anything, we've seen in the history of our nation how things turn on a dime when it comes to primaries and elections. So let's wait it out. At this point, Biden has 898 delegates. Bernie probably has about 750 or 760. So there's about 150 between them. All of California has not been awarded. Right. There's about 80 still open there.
But would you agree? Would you agree that if they took this thing all the way to the convention, if Bernie didn't drop out of the race, that neither of them would reach the requisite number of delegates, and then you'd now be at the convention to a second ballot.
And you never know how these things turn out. Eric, if you look at the history in 1980, who would have thought that Eddie Kennedy would lose to Jimmy Carter? I mean, there was absolutely no chance in hell that anybody would have predicted that situation. So if let's say you go to a contested convention with the presumption that Biden with the whole party establishment is going to win, you can't predict that. Nobody can sit here today on March 17th, St. Patrick's Day, and say that's what's going to happen. Because history, if it's of any reference to us, has actually played against where we thought it would go. So I think it's too early for folks to write off standards. I think it's too early for folks to for the Biden folks to claim victory. If the only thing I can say is if these guys want to learn from history, they have to figure out a way to come together and quickly. If the Democratic Party can, have a presumptuous a nominee, then there is a clear alternative to Trump. And if any mischievous attempt by Trump to mess around with this election, then there is a reference, a rallying point. If these guys are going to be fighting through June, I don't think it serves the nation well. Because we're dealing with extraordinary circumstances. We call it a stress test. I call it extraordinary circumstances. We have to be vigilant as a nation. Not only the fact that we're dealing with an emergency, but we're dealing with a madman in the White House. Everything to cling on to power. Long before any of this happened, they said even if he lost the election, he may not leave because he may point to something. So we don't know how he's going to respond to this. So I think it's important for the Democratic Party to set aside the differences, come together, and have a nominee, have a rallying point, so that there is a clear contrast alternative in place, so that they can deal with this whole situation.
See, and that's where I get off the boat, because I don't think that this thing is up to the Democratic Party, because again, when I look at a Donald Trump, for all that we say he is, the madman that we say he is a byproduct of what the Democratic Party and the Republican Party have mixed together in this concoction called politics, right? And so if we're now going to depend on one wing of this dirty bird to fix it, I say we're looking in the wrong place. We're looking under the wrong rock. I think that we need to cast that rock into the ocean and we need to find a new one. They're not going to fix the problem that they caused. That's not what they're built to do at this point. They're built to preserve what they have at the expense of those who have been subjugated. So,
yeah, but Eric, let's stay on the topic of the primaries or the Democratic Party nomination process. This was a race for Bernie. This was Bernie's race to lose. Let's accept it. Okay, I think he got cocky or confident in between, and his campaign didn't turn out the vote that they should have turned out. There was absolutely no reason for Bernie Sanders to lose Michigan. There was absolutely no reason for him to lose Texas after leading.
But for me, the week before. But here's where I am, and this is where I believe the entire mistake has been made on the progressive side. It's not, and Bernie, I think he tried to do it in his messaging, but he didn't do it. He didn't practice it. It's not about Bernie. So when he had the message, it's not me, it's us. I think that he really should have just adopted the Poor People's Campaign. That he should have said that this is about the Poor People's Campaign. That I am running the next leg of the race that Dr. Martin Luther King started. And at the end of the day, I agree. Yeah. You understand what I'm saying? That he should have attached himself to the Poor People's Movement, because that's what it is. It's not about Bernie Sanders. And there's no way, see, I would have, and this is what I try to do from this show, and I don't try to do it in a clever way. I try to do it in an authentic way and ask the question, Sudan, how can you say that you are for Dr. King and you say you're not for this movement? How can you do that? How can you look at Dr. King of 1952, who wrote a letter to his wife who said, I'm a Democrat socialist, because when I look at this capitalistic theory, this economic theory of capitalism, it doesn't work when you see 40 million poor people. And so he declared himself in 1952 a Democrat socialist. But you have the same people of Democratic Party look and say, well, wait a minute, we love Dr. King, but we hate Democratic socialism. We love Dr. King, but we want to tie this movement, to communism.
It goes beyond Dr. King. It goes to FDR.
It goes to, right. That's what I'm saying. So let's take it all. So let's take it all. But there's this confusion, and this is why I say we vote against our interest. Our interest is a poor people's movement. Our interest is the fact that right now.
None of it matters. But none of it matters if you don't win. And I understand when you say it's not about Bernie Sanders, but you see, they should have not been in the situation after being in the lead after Iowa and New Hampshire and Nevada. They blew it, and that's the problem.
But here's but Sudan, but here's the
question. Have a conversation with the other progressive and try to consolidate their vote.
But here's the question.
They didn't do that as well.
Here's the question and so it must be, to me, the deep psychoses of the individual. Well, what do they call it? They call it Stockholm syndrome, right? So you are personally experiencing these issues, right? These hardships. You're personally experiencing them, yet you're embracing the.
Yes, but that goes to the same poor white Republicans who vote.
I don't disagree with you.
For the policies that go against them.
I don't disagree with you. I'm saying
it's the same thing.
No, but that's where I believed the poor people's movement was well positioned to be able to pull those white voters and say, hey, wait a minute, wake up. Do you understand that the policies that this guy has implemented are hurting you? Do you understand what I'm saying? So that's why I'm saying to you, the Democratic Party, that left wing of this dirty, filthy bird, is just as dangerous as the right wing is. That it is this progressive wing, or this progressive part of the party that is saying, hey, look, dig down deep and understand that both of them have policies that are affecting and hurting.
But again, it goes back to winning elections, Eric, and that's the whole point. You and I just hit on a very important, remarkable point about the poor white vote. Now, Bernie Sanders should have had a mechanism to reach those folks, and who knows, that might have been the game changer in a couple of states where he could have potentially changed the situation from winning to losing. Let's just go back to Michigan for a second. This is a state where he trounced Clinton 4 years ago in a head with nobody else. It was just head to head. Now, 4 years later, he loses to Biden by 20 points. The only explanation for that is that they got cocky, they got confident, and they took the feet off the gas pedal, so that turn-off mechanics didn't work, and that's what they lost. You can't just keep saying that the Democratic Party did a coup d'etat by getting those guys to withdraw. No, can't. There was not enough time for people to change their minds or for people who have already voted to change their votes. This all happened Saturday, Sunday before Super Tuesday. This guy, he screwed up. He got cocky, he got confident, and he didn't do what he was supposed to do to win. And at the end of the day, Eric, we can talk till the cows come home. But if you don't win, then you don't have a seat at the table.
Got it.
And it was his race to lose. So, the traditional centrist, traditional Clinton supporters were beginning to migrate. Like, maybe we need 4 years of this, to bring the country back to normalcy. But he blew it.
Well, I think the people blew it. Call it go.
Good morning, gentlemen. How you doing? How you doing, Eric? How you doing, Sidan? This is Farrakhan.
Farrakhan.
I want to answer this question you guys both seem. I don't want to say you guys don't understand it, but I think that you guys are just missing it. Okay? The reason Bernie Sanders doesn't want to attach himself to the poor people's campaign in the sense of what Martin Luther King was going for, or to what you just said, Sudan, is very simple. Poor white people do not want to be poor white people next to poor black people. That is it. Nobody wants that status. And because they do not, because we have a basic, I don't care if you're white, green, purple, if you do not want to be equal to blacks. Okay? And anything that puts you on that plane is unacceptable. So you cannot run on a plane where you tell white people that they are equal to blacks and that black people will stand, white people will stand with them. That is it. It's not a dilemma. You guys are talking, and I hear you. And I respect everything you're saying, but you're missing that very basic racist point that is inbred into American, I don't even want to say American, into world culture. Sudan, I believe, I don't know for sure, but you may be Indian. And I'm sure you would say that if that's you, I'm not sure where you're from. So I apologize if you are.
I'm Irish and Indian. My father's Jewish descent, so I'm not. But
I can almost guarantee you that wherever your relatives are from, the darkest people in that culture are the ones that are held down the lowest. And nobody wants to be part of that dark class. And that goes throughout the world.
Let me tell you this. I was recruited in 2008 to bring home, without getting into the specifics, bring home certain communities which were unwilling to embrace the Obama presidential candidacy because they were all strong supporters of Clinton. Brother, I've lived it. And I would start my presentation by saying, hey guys, have you seen your face in the mirror? That's how I would start my presentation. So, listen, I'm totally familiar with it. But the thing is, while what you're talking about is very basic and inherent to this nation, there are some states where you have poor white folks not really living alongside. The percentage of population of black folks there in those states are very less. If you look at certain states, like for example Wyoming or West Virginia, you have those states where. But I'm talking about.
That's the question.
Let me just finish my thought.
Okay.
About the nuts and bolts. All I'm talking about is not philosophical, okay, not ideological, but I'm talking about the nuts and bolts of winning a campaign. That's all I'm talking about. And if he would have strategically been able to court those folks in those pockets, then he would not be in the situation where he's taking.
And I got it. But what I'm saying is he cannot do that. And again, the poor white guy in West Virginia does not want to be equated with the poor white guy black man in North New Jersey. That's what I'm trying to say to you. And until you understand that basic separation that we have in this world and in this country, then you don't get it. And so simple and plain, no poor white person wants to be equal to a poor. That is the worst thing a poor white person can be, is equal to a black man. He's got to be that. And that is where the problem is. So Bernie Sanders cannot run and try and make the melting pot of the races and think that he's going to get the support. He's not. And that's all I'm trying to say. So when you ask that question or you pose it, that's what it is. So understanding that basic dilemma, okay, I don't even want to call it. Sure.
Can I share something with you quickly, which we see in North Hudson or in New Jersey in terms of school enrollment? Our school enrollment white population shows 17, 18, sometimes 19%. Okay, but when we actually look deep into it, we see that we don't have more than 10% Caucasian white. So we're trying to figure out where is this higher reporting coming from. And you know what it is? To your point, there are a lot of folks, immigrant communities, who have come from outside in the last, say, 30, 40 years, who don't want to be identified as African American or Hispanic or Asian because inherently they are fair skinned or, they're white skinned. And so they register themselves as white. For example, the Arabic speaking population or the northeastern African population, they're all light skinned folks. They all register themselves as white. Okay? And so we have that number overstated. Okay. However, going back to your point, in just talking about the election, if you look at President Obama, he was able to get that poor white vote because he got the other guy, Romney, or for that matter, McCain. They were the only Republican presidential candidates who got less than 70% of the white vote. Obama was the only guy who broke that 30% ceiling. Whereas if you look at Clinton, She lost that. She went. The other guy got more than 70%. Now, if you look at Bill Clinton, he won traditional, and we're talking about 1992. He won traditional poor white states where you don't have that much of an African American population. We're talking about states like Kentucky, Oklahoma, Arkansas. Of course, he was the governor, so there's an explanation for that. But we're talking about a state like Kentucky, which is an 85-90% white state in 1992. That Clinton was able to win because he was able to talk, kitchen table economics to the white folk. And again, what I expressed was aspirational, and I completely agree with you that on the ground it plays out differently. But my positioning was aspirational. If there is a way for a guy like Bernie Sanders to message his economic message to the guy whose farm is falling apart, to the guy who's already back on his mortgage by 3 months and he's probably going to lose his house, which was given to him by his father or his family-owned home or a ranch in the next 4 months. If Bernie's economic message is strong, it protects the middle class, it protects the lower income class. If he was able to message that, and he's able to break past the color barrier in our nation, which is inherent at deep stated, then he probably would have had a fighting chance. Now, the only thing is, we've had examples in the past, in the last 30 years, where Democratic presidents have been able to do that. And the reverse as well. Look at Trump. The liberal, middle-class white folks, blue-collared white folks, who abandoned the Republicans after Reagan, who were strongly entrenched in the Democratic camp, they switched to Trump in the last cycle. So there has been some mobility in the white voter, and I think that's potentially up for grabs. And I'll blame the Democratic Party because in the name of Big Tent, they've actually completely excluded certain groups, and that has worked against them over the years. I read an interesting article that is saying, why does the African American community still need to support the Democratic Party when the Democratic Party has actually not done anything? It's a great question. I remember having this conversation 5 years ago with an elected leader from New Jersey, I'm going to name the person, who said, Sudan, we have the same family across 3 generations living in the same government-assigned housing project.
That's right.
I said, that's your favorite.
The reason for that, as a black person, I would ask, from what I understand and from the discussions I've had, the reason for that is because we look and we see who's following the Republicans. Right? One of the greatest reasons, their support is probably black people's number one reason for going with Democrats. Right? We look at who supports a white Republican, and you say, nah, me and that guy. So it's the exact same thing, I guess, in reverse for what I'm saying about poor white people who will not attach themselves with poor black people. We look at the Republicans and we say, if that guy is supporting you, he definitely doesn't roll with me. I'm not going there.
Yeah, you got a point.
And that's what happened. Right? Yeah. That's what happens, right? So like if you look at all the MAGA hat wearing people, and as a black person in North New Jersey, you're gonna be like, man, I don't think whatever he's rolling with, I'm not rolling with. And that's what happens. Yeah. So I just think the same thing happens on either. For whatever reason, well, I guess for historical reasons, neither side trusts the other side's support. Not so much even the people that they put out front, but just their support. Like you look at the team and you're like, man, I ain't going nowhere near that right there. Right. And blacks say it and whites say it. So it keeps us where we are. But I'm going to sit back and listen. Eric, this coronavirus on Facebook. I done shared your thing today. I need as much information as possible, so I had to do it.
Hey, listen. Wait a minute. See, now this is what I want to say. Remember we started this conversation talking about what people know and what people don't know and how people need to, how government needs to provide information. And I said to you, Sudan, that folks are not intellectually curious. So here you have a guy who said, you know what, I need to know more about what's going on with coronavirus. So I'm tuning back into whatever social media that I need to be able to get the information I need to get. So I'm being intellectually curious. So folks can go and seek out information if they want to. Now, I want to ask you a question, Farrakhan, because I was listening to the news, and now they're talking about curtailing business with restaurants and other businesses, and now lumped into that they're mentioning beauty salons and barbershops. Have you heard?
And they should. They should. Eric, I stayed home so far for the day. I've been debating it all day, whether or not I would open up. I think, I keep hearing that there's like this, when it comes to the coronavirus, that it stays on hard services for like 72 hours. If that is the case, for me, I'm thinking of just working 2 days a week. I'm going to give my shop and myself a 72-hour period in between, so I can operate today, and then I can sterilize as the best I possibly can, and then sit back from the shop for 3 days. Make sure that my shop is, sterile, and that that it's not pathogens there for them, and open up again, and then just have to take the best precautions on the days that I do open. Like I told you the other day, everything is disposable. Everything, there's a 10-minute sanitation in between each customer for each blade used, for each tool used, for the chair and the seating and so forth. I don't use reused case. I actually went and bought plastic, and I made individual plastic capes. I bought 400-yard roll, and we made individual capes for everybody, so nobody will get the same things put on them. But at this point, to protect myself, I think that's just how I'm going to operate.
Well, let me read what I posted on my page yesterday. It said, Robert Redfield, director of the U.S. Center of Disease Control and Prevention, told Congress last month that the agency was aggressively evaluating how long COVID-19 can survive, particularly on surfaces. Quote, on copper and steel, it's pretty typical. It's pretty much about 2 hours, Redfield said at the House hearing. But I will say on other surfaces, cardboard or plastic, it's longer. And so we are looking at this. Redfield added infections contracted from the surfaces rather than through air could have contributed to the outbreak on the Diamond Princess's cruise ship. So, yes, because of the porous nature of plastic and cardboards, they're evaluating how long it could last. And when I posted this, I had stopped into a restaurant yesterday and wanted to get just a side of collard greens, and the food server behind the counter didn't have gloves on and grabbed a plastic container, filled it up, and then began to seal the container with his bare hands. And I said, no, thank you, and walked out of the store. Because
understandable. It's
you understand what I'm
in
saying.
A pharmacy. Now, the pharmacy is a place where people are sick and they're coming to get medications and so forth. And no one in the pharmacy had on any protective, good gear, no gloves, no mask, nothing. I'm like, so you might be potentially getting something from someone who's sick, and then storing it, and then handing it, as far as money or so forth, to other people.
Let's go beyond that. Let's go beyond that. And now back to this conversation that we were having earlier, Sudan, about the spread, right? So now you got somebody who goes into the pharmacy. They go pick something up that's a plastic bottle of medicine, right, from the shelf, right? And we don't know how many other people touch that same bottle, right? And how long the, contaminants live on that bottle. And then you're now touching this bottle. You take it up to the front. Even if it wasn't contaminated at that point, the cashier now handles the bottle in order to put it in a plastic bag that was handled by how many people we don't know. Then you take that plastic bag and you walk out of the store. So this is why they say you need to wash your hands and not touch your face. Because not only touching individuals, so when they say, well, we're going to have 10 people or 5 people or 2 people in a room together. Well, but it's not just the people in the room. It's everything that's in that room. And the number of people that touch whatever's in that room. And then where that thing now travels. So the spread is real. And now I get back to what you were saying, Sudan, about testing. That we cannot address this thing until we begin to test and know the full nature of the beast. We got problems. We got big problems.
And
Speculation.
Oh, Sudan, I think I think you have me on mute.
Apologize.
There we go.
So that is going to be key and central to actually tangibly containing this problem. Everything else is a we have to do in terms of the social distancing and the curfews, and all of that helps in breaking the links, breaking the chains, keeping folks safe. But ultimately, unless we, as the United States, the greatest nation in the world, if we do not come up with a comprehensive testing mechanism and eventually a vaccine or a treatment mechanism, we are not going to be able to contain this.
Let me ask you a question, Sudan. I
Yeah.
posted this on my page, and I was told I was irresponsible for posting it, or maybe I should have reconsidered it. But it made sense to me, so I did. There was a person who posted this. They said, my brilliant friend shared this. Please stay home and avoid people. I am a facts and data person. This put it into perspective for me. It says, suppose you catch the virus. Now, this is understanding that that you could be asymptomatic, according to what they say from the CDC. You could be asymptomatic for up to 5 or 6 days, right? And you could just be walking around with it and not have a symptom in the world. But it says, suppose you catch the virus, you're asymptomatic, you will give it, they said you have a possibility of giving it to 3 people during that 6-day period.
Exactly.
Right?
That's the problem.
Wait a minute. So let me just go through the math. So if we understand that, it says, so you're the one, you give it to 3. Those 3 people now, because now we're in multiples of 3. Those 3 people, that goes to 9. Then 9 multiplied by 3 goes to 27. That's only 4 steps now. 27 goes to 81. That's 5 steps. 81 goes to 243. That's 6 steps. 7 steps, you're at 729. 8 steps, you're at 2,187. Another step, you're at 6,561. Now you're up to 8 or 9 steps. You're at 19,683. Now exponentially, it's growing, right? From 19,000 to 59,000 to 177,000 to 531,000 to 1.5 million to 4.7 million to 14 million. Those are multiples of 3. Exponential growth.
So Eric, I've seen a model which takes our confirmed, projected, potential confirmed cases to 150 million. I've seen a model. So that is why all of the measures that the government has announced have to be strictly followed by us folks, but you have to make this comprehensive through testing and treatment. Working in isolation is only going to do half of what it's supposed to do.
So Sudan,
that's why
let me
I
ask
go
you
back
another
to
question.
the South Korean model.
So
that's why I go back to the South Korean model. You look at their testing ratios to every million. They were able to test 4,000 for every million, and their fatality rate is at 0.6% right now. Whereas in Italy, they are testing 700 people out of every million. Their fatality is at 6%, which is 2.5 times what the WHO is saying is the worldwide fatality rate. And that's what we got to learn. That's the inference we got to take. And we are the greatest nation in the world. We have the resources to be able to put this together in quick order. Instead of this guy who says he's going to wash away, we have to put the testing mechanisms and the treatment mechanisms quickly. Because this asymptomatic that you're talking about, Eric, somebody could be carrying the virus. They could be meeting 10 different people. All 10 of them get. This guy might not even exhibit anything. He might go home scot-free. You got 10 folks who are going to be seriously ill thereafter. That's why the testing is key. The testing, it all comes back to testing. About testing, and that's what I think we need to go to the next phase. But I want to place on record some of the things that our local, like New Jersey government has done at the state level, and I would say particularly at the city level in Jersey, is formidable. I mean, given the circumstances, there is no playbook. Nobody knows what this is. And what Mayor Phillip has done, or for that matter, what Governor Murphy has done in coordination with Governor Cuomo and the Connecticut governor, that is a model that has to be followed. Right now in New Jersey, we have about, I think, 170 or 180 confirmed cases, and the governor of New Jersey is saying no groups of more than 50. Whereas in Washington State, they have 700 cases. Their government is still saying no groups of more than 100. So that's how, aggressive New Jersey is. And I think there are lessons to be learned. But again, like I said, a lot of this has to come from the national government because this is a national problem. And so if the president of the nation is on a conference call with 3 governors on the phone and says, I can't get you guys ventilators, you guys have to get ventilators yourself, that's a problem. I mean, how much resources do the governors of the state have access to as opposed to the FEMA and everything else? So I think that's where the feds have failed in this. And I think that's where, this is a president who's giving himself 10 on 10 when we have 4,200 cases from a 0 4 weeks ago. I mean, the exponential you're talking about, that's playing out right in front of our eyes, you know? And so the fact that he's sitting there and smugly giving himself 10 on 10, it's ridiculous. It's a slap on the face of the 4,200 people. It's a slap on the face of every kid who's sitting home and doing homeschooling today, doing distance learning. It's a slap on the face of every teacher who's trying to get into the internet and manage 20 kids or 30 kids via the various channels of the internet based on the speeds that they have and the needs of the kids. I mean, it's a disgrace. And, again, I know you don't appreciate me too much fighting on Trump, but he is the president of the United States. He has to lead from the front. He thinks it's a show, and that's the problem.
Oh no, I'm not suggesting that at all. Lay this at his doorstep. I'm saying that we then have to go beyond that and understand how he got to where he got to, and we have to focus on tearing the whole system down. So in Newark, the National Guard stepped foot, and the National Guard is being placed strategically across this country as we speak. Do you believe that we are headed to a national quarantine, if you will?
Eric, I'm not a medical professional, but from everything I'm reading and I'm seeing and hearing, there is a serious concerted effort that we need to do as a nation to break the linkage, to break the ability for this virus to communicate from one person to another. And so to do that, whatever measures that government of the day who have access to the models and the resources to be able to see how this thing extrapolates, we may not have a choice in this matter. We may have to follow what the folks, the experts say ultimately that we need to do. And that's what it is. Whether it's 2 weeks or 3 weeks, and if that's what it takes to break the link, that's what we have to do.
Yeah. Caller, go.
Hey, I just was saying to you about the national quarantine. Trump is on the news right now, and he is speaking on his 15-day plan in order to control this. Guaranteed, as they strategically put their the National Guard where they need to put them, that if they don't have the numbers or the control that they would hopefully like to have within that. As he's saying now, 14 days left, period, it's absolute. We're going to be in a quarantine situation. It's going to happen. It has to happen. Right? If you cannot control it, then you have to just stop people from doing anything. So it's got to happen. And that's the purpose of strategically putting your National Guard where you need to put it. So that when you put the clamp down, you are already there to be in charge. So sure. And I'm listening to Trump right now. Obvious. When this doesn't work, or these mild approaches that they're taking because they're not drastic enough, doesn't work, it's exactly what's going to happen in this country. Okay. So just be prepared for it.
So
it's coming.
Okay, thanks.
Eric, I have a hard stop at 12 o'clock, so there are open issues that we want to talk about before we get up. And again, we'll reconvene later in the week if you think we need to reconvene. If not, we just do this every Monday as we decided.
All right, my brother. You go take care of your thing. I appreciate you being on. We'll get back to this on another day.
Thanks a lot, Eric, and I appreciate the time, and God bless you. Good office. Take care.
Thanks a lot. Hey, guys. So here's where we are now. The president right now, I saw breaking news that they're looking to save the airlines. They're looking to shore up, our financial institutions. there's a run on toilet paper and water and other kinds of supply. Here's what I want to say about that very, very quickly. And I'll keep tabs on it. If I got to do breaking news, I'll do breaking news. I'm here. I know Diane doesn't like me, heading out. I'll probably put a mask on and head out for a little while and come back and wash my hands. I have to still take care of business, have to feed the family and take care of ourselves. So we need to do certain kinds of things and take the necessary precautions as we do it. But what kind of people are we where you go to the store and you grab all of the water and all of the toilet paper and all of the supplies such that those who are the most vulnerable in our community don't have access to any of them? I've seen now that some stores have had to create windows of opportunity for senior citizens to be able to make it safely into their stores to get the necessary supplies to get through. I just don't know, what to say about people who behave like that. I think that from what I hear, there is no issue with the supply chain of produce and toilet paper and water and other essentials making it to the supermarkets. The question will be, if there is a lockdown, if there is a national quarantine, how people get to those supplies. And I think that if we are operating from the premise that we need to have social distancing, then the people who work in those stores will be given some sort of passage into the stores, and then, however they, set up a system for a few, whatever they consider to be a safe number of people at a time going into the store to be able to get what it is that they need to get and ration it out, they'll do that. But I don't think that we need to be concerned at that level yet, or at all. And so please be mindful and thoughtful of your neighbor to make sure that they have access to some of the essential things that are on the shelves in these stores as well. But I will be on if I need to be back on. I'm gonna go and listen to the news, read the paper, check out what's going on. You all be safe. Wash your hands. That is the thing that you can do. You can wash your hands and heed the advice that's coming from scientists, not from conspiracy theorists, but from scientists. I want to thank you guys for tuning in. This is another episode of the Eric Dawson Radio Show. Thank you, Diana Marie Clements. I'm still trying to figure out how to get over there to get my Girl Scout cookies. And Sudan Thomas, thanks for taking the time, brother. Appreciate you.